Hey friends, so here is a video on how to finish your hoop and how to back it. So we have finished stitching. There's a few things we're gonna need. If you have the kit, you should have a round piece of felt. If you have bought your own felt, just make sure you go ahead and cut that. What you can do is put the felt underneath your hoop, trace the outer circle because you do want it to be a little bit bigger. You don't want to really trace the inside circle, and then cut that out, and then you'll be ready. You need scissors, you need an iron or some sort of something that produces heat, whether it's a hair dryer, a steamer, maybe your dryer if you have no other option, and then a hot glue gun. So the first thing I like to do is I like to keep my finished piece inside my hoop and then grab my iron. I'm then going to not make my glue gun fall. I'm then going to use the steam option on my iron, and I'm going to gently press it over my piece. The reason why I'm not taking it out of the hoop yet is I don't want to accidentally lose my tension, because whenever I take all my pin marks away, I might realize, oh, I didn't dot my I like I thought I was supposed to, or that I thought I did, or I didn't do X, Y, or Z. And so that way, once you take all the pin marks away, you can easily add some more stitches if you need to. So I'm just going to gently kind of hover a little in steam. And this really is the scariest part and best part because it's fun, especially with the clouds. It's so, seeing those pin marks just make it look more, dirty, I guess is the best way to put it. And so by doing this, it just helps you see the cleanliness that needs to be added, that helps come out. There you go. Struggling with my words. Okay, so I see two spots that I need to work on. It looks like I didn't fully close my A up here, and it looks like my 6 could possibly come down a little bit, and maybe my N. I'm looking a little bit closer. I might fix my N as well. So I'm going to take a second. I'm going to turn off the video. I'm going to fix that. You go ahead, take a minute, fix any mistakes that you might see, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so I fixed those few little letters, and I did, after each time fixing a letter, I cut and then moved on to the next letter. I didn't, because I was fixing something here and then down here and then down here, I didn't leave my floss going from each one. So now, if your piece is already centered and exactly where you want it to be, you don't have to do this next step. If you realize your piece is not centered and you want to recenter it, you're going to take it out of the hoop, and then you're just going to recenter it, of course, using both pieces of fabric. Make sure you pull tight. Make sure everything is nice and even. Your text looks even. You haven't pulled too far one way or another way, because once we glue the backing, that's it. There's no more taking it out of the hoop. I think my mom once took a finished piece out of the hoop because she wanted to stain the hoop and didn't realize you couldn't then put it back in. I mean, she managed it, but it's definitely not as tight as it was supposed to be. So all that to say, this is your last chance to move your piece, to adjust it to how you want it to look. After this, it's done. Another option before we start backing the piece is to get a lint roller and to roll it over your piece, because sometimes as you're stitching, just little pieces of fuzzies come off. I do get really nervous doing that with French knots, because I feel like French knots can easily be pulled and then you'd have to restitch it. Not the whole thing, but maybe anything that's been pulled. So I was just thinking as I was thinking about this, maybe if you have one of those air, like for keyboards, like a air in a can, you could probably spray over a piece, probably not too close because I think it can make it wet. You can maybe spray off any excess fabric debris. But I do suggest doing that now so that if anything does get pulled, again, you can fix it before the back is permanently put on. So next, let's start cutting. I know that sounds scary, right? Like, what, you want me to cut? This is always what happens. There's like 20 different ways you can back your hoop, and I feel like I need to tell you all of them in case you didn't get the felt. So let me tell you two things. One option is, at this point, it's centered, everything's good, you're ready. This is what you want it to look like permanently. You can cut all the way down and just, cut to this edge, both pieces of fabric, and leave it like that. I don't suggest that. Maybe you're in a pinch, you don't want to go buy felt, you don't have anything else, you just want to be done. You could do it. But I have noticed that the fabric tends to get looser over time, and so you won't have as tight of a piece in, say, 2 years from now. And you've spent all this time in it. You want to keep it nice and perfectly put together. So that is one option. Another option is you can get an extra piece of fabric that you have laying around. You can take your hoop out of, or you take your piece out of the hoop. You can put a third piece down so that it's covering all of this, and then you can follow the next set of instructions. Those are some of the most popular ways. There's another option that you can do a running stitch, I think is what it's called, and then you pull it and all this comes together. I think that's nice. I have done that once before. I think it's nice because if you realize later that something is wrong in your piece, you can easily take it out and stitch again. So it doesn't make it so permanent that you can't ever go back to it. But what I'm going to show you is with the felt. This is my personal favorite. What we're going to do is grab a pair of scissors, and we're going to cut away this white piece of fabric, our thin piece of fabric. We're going to get a pair of fabric scissors. If you do not have a pair of scissors that you only use for fabric, I'm telling you now, you need to have a pair of scissors that's only for fabric. Write fabric on them so no one uses it for anything else. I kind of need to bring this closer to me. So I'm going to cut all the way down. Again, it's just this one piece of fabric. I'm not cutting both pieces. And I'm going to cut along the wooden hoop. And I'm kind of holding, as you can see, the cone of fabric away so I don't actually nix it. Nix it? Oh. And something I do prefer is to hold my pieces while I'm doing this, because I don't really want to be dragging the front design on a table and pushing it all around and possibly messing up any stitches. If your stitches are nice and tight, it shouldn't be a problem, but I just have, I don't know, control issues maybe. Okay. So that piece is gone. If you see at this point, there's some pieces sticking up a little bit. It's not too big of a deal, but if it's maybe much more than that right there, I would maybe cut it down again. Next, we're going to cut this just a little so that later when we glue and we push this fabric down, it's not going to touch our hoop. So we want to cut this to be about, why do I do this to myself that I have to give you numbers? I don't know. 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 of an inch. Either way, you just want to be so that it folds down. It's not going to hit the main fabric, the main design. Okay, so I am going to put it down this time, but when I move my piece, I'm going to lift it, turn it. And you do want to make sure you're not cutting it down too low, because you want enough fabric to glue down. So it's better to cut off too little than too much. You can always come back and test it. Like once you've cut, you can fold down and go, oh yeah, that's good. Or well, it needs to be a little more cut off. Okay, throw some of those extra pieces away. I had to think for a second. I'm like, what am I doing? Okay, next we're going to get our glue gun, and we're going to put just a little bit here on the wooden portion. Depending on your glue, how fast it dries depends on how big of a section you can put glue down in. I tend to work in this kind of small increments. glue, put a little glue down, fold my fabric down, put a little glue down, glue, and etc. So let me get my glue gun and put a little bit down. And I'm going to fold it over. And if you notice it's puffing up a little bit here at the bottom, don't worry about that. We'll come back to that at the very end, or once we're done gluing all the way around the circle. So again, I'm gonna pick it up and turn it. And if you notice too much is sticking out like this, you might not be putting enough glue down. I must not be putting enough glue down. Probably shouldn't be putting my glue gun right down on my felt, so don't do as I'm doing. Oop, sorry. Iron decided to yell at me. Okay, now if you have spots like I do that have some fabric sticking up just a little bit, just kind of slide your glue gun under there and add just a tad, not too much, because you don't want to end up making anything, sorry if that went off camera, you don't want anything to end up getting onto the main piece. See, one more little section I think I want to get. Okay, maybe one more. Okay, so let me put that down. Next, I have glue on my scissors. I'm running out my felt. Okay, go away. This, you're gonna try and put the felt nice and centered on your piece, and then you're gonna use your fingers and push it down into the hoop. Just gently, you don't wanna push too hard. But it should be evenly, the felt should come up evenly all the way around the sides. Now, one option is you could leave it just like this. Honestly, the felt's probably not going to come out. It's secure enough that it's not going to just fall out. Or if you'd like, you can put glue. You can either put glue on 4 sides, the top, the bottom, and the side, or you could pull back and try and glue all the way around. It makes me a little nervous because the circle is just like the felt circle is just small enough that I'm scared that my glue will end up on my actual piece. So I don't like to put glue all the way around. But if you're a brave soul, go for it. I won't judge you. But in this instance, I am just going to do the 4 quote corners. So I'm going to put mine on my felt and then push it there. And then I'm going to make sure I'm kind of pushing around the corners so that's nice and even when I get to this next side. I feel really funny saying sides with a circle. And again, make sure you're not putting too much glue. You really don't want it to end up on your main piece. Okay, so all 4 sides look more like I'm doing air quotes, but it looks like a T-Rex. Okay, sorry, again, I've recorded videos for way too long. You're done. That is it. You have finished your piece. It is backed. You've stitched it all. Way to go. And make sure, if you haven't already finished your piece, make sure you enter into the final contest so that you can be entered into one last giveaway. So thanks guys for joining along.